Namaste and peace, everyone. Oh, hey, welcome this morning. Thanks for liking this video before you've even seen it. Thank you very much. Peace and namaste, and welcome to Mysticism, not Church. Mysticism, not Church. I'm trying out a new name because it's really more about mysticism. I'm Reverend Peter Panagore, and I'm using my title these days because it seems to have some value in the outside world. I never used it when I was a minister, but here I am using it. So I'm Peter Panagore. Today, the Tao of Christ Within. The Tao of Christ Within. We'll see where the Upanishads, Jesus, Lao Tzu, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Rumi agree again, and how my first NDE and Samadhi experience corroborate their teaching of heaven accessed within, which will change your daily life for the better, as it has mine. 3 ohms to begin. We begin with a gathering together of meditation. So 3 ohms to begin, then briefly breathe with me today. So try breathing with me today as we link our souls and on the worldwide light web this way too, this way and this way, and magnify our inner lights together. One magnifies the other. I shine my light on you, you shine your light on me, we all shine our lights on each other, and everybody's brighter. So whether we are live here now or come a little later, take a moment to center with me before I speak today. So here we go. Oh, feel. Don't think. Feel. Here we go. 3 ohms, then some breaths. Feet flat on the floor, spine erect, breathing into your belly and into your lungs. Feel the vibration. Belly breathing. Listen to your breath. Place your attention on your breath. Listen. Your belly is a bellows to control. Feel. Don't think with meditation. The Tao of Christ within. It's my first time using that word Christ, I think, in the whole time I've done, not church, the Tao of Christ within. I mean, I've used it in the context of Christ consciousness, but not just the word, the naked word, the Tao of Christ within. As I read and reflect on the teachings of the worldwide mystical geniuses, as I feel the energy inside me, I'm struck by the truth with a capital T that among them The ultimate reality, capital T, capital U, capital R, among them, the ultimate reality lives shared as an experience that they all had. And that this lives inside each of us. I know this for myself. I see it inside of you. You know it for yourselves. You have felt it for yourselves. And everything that is a thing around us. Imagine this. Imagine the polarity of the earth, north and south, plus and minus, opposites that consist of two fields, southern field of magnetism and the northern field. These are two fields, but they're unified in one shield. They are the magnetic shield of the earth. And I don't know if you heard about the huge coronal ejection that came off the sun just yesterday that blacked out to some extent South America. It doesn't always work, that big, huge shield against the radiation of the sun, but the unity of the shield inside of us, around us, so we're the North and the South Pole, the human and the soul, the North and the South Pole, unified in this singular shield of the divine being. We are the North and the South, the soul and the body, unified inside this oneness to which we are mostly blind. The two inside the one. You've seen the yin yang symbol, yes? The two inside the one. The idea here is echoed in the Gospel of Thomas, saying 30, which states, where three, and this is different from what you've heard before and the other Gospels. So listen, saying 30, where there are three divine beings, they are divine. Where there are two or one, I myself dwell with that person. The divine is there inside of you, whether there are 62 of us gathered here this morning, or three, or two, or one. The divine, the I am, the I, myself, the Christ within Jesus dwells within 1, 2, 3, 3,000,000, 3 septillion things, all things that are things, and those things with consciousness have access to this. Consciousness like awareness of consciousness. Remember in Matthew 18:20, where Jesus says, where two or three are gathered in my authority, in my radiance, I exist in the midst of them. So I've been learning about that particular saying. I've been reading, and I'll look it up here, make sure I get the title right. Let's see, where is it? There it is. I've been reading, what the heck? Why did it open up? It's a Kindle book. Oh, Wendy knows what I'm reading because she recommended it. There's the Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus. The Revelations of the Aramaic Jesus. So there's this ancient text that's written in Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. And there's a scholar out there who's been working on it with his doctorate and as a scholar for many, many years, Neil Douglas Klotz, and I've been reading his latest book. And this saying, the where two or three are gathered, I am there. That in the midst of them, that word midst of them, also in the Aramaic means a rising inside of and an emanating out from. A rising inside and an emanating out from. It's not just in the midst of us and between us. It arises in here and it emanates out of us. It's in this Aramaic. So the idea here is that there are Aramaic texts that preceded the Koine Greek Gospels. And we can talk a lot about that some other point, this history and theology. We talk about this magnification of the divine inside us because those who practice together in a singular focus, in silence, experience the magnification. It's here. 3 billion, 3 septillion, three of us, where the divine being is always with us. Two or one, he says, even just one person, the divine is always with us because that is who we are. But in the focus of the silence, in this community, there's a magnification of the divine presence. I ask you to feel it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. The light is always in everything, as Thomas 30 states. It's more so when gathered in a collective. Experience it for yourself. Now, maybe you feel this now. Maybe you feel it on Mondays or Wednesdays, or maybe you feel it when you're with other people, other groups. This divine radiance isn't just in our little community. This divine radiance permeates all things that are tuned into this highest frequency. Aim for the highest frequency, not just the higher frequency. The Gospel of Thomas, saying 30, it's a powerful reminder that we are all connected to the divine and can find God within ourselves. That's what this says. Seek and find. I sought, and I found. I found. The Upanishads also speak to this idea with the famous saying, Tat Tavam Asi, which translates as you are that, or you are Brahman. The ultimate reality, capital U, capital R, the ultimate reality, also known, AKA, as God. This phrase, Tat Tavam Asi, is an expression of the fundamental truth, capital T, of the Upanishads. This same thing is a fundamental truth of the Upanishads, which is that the individual self is ultimately one with the divine. The same thing Jesus is teaching. I experienced the truth of union in my first NDE. And again, similarly, differently, but similarly, loss of self during the car wreck scene, where I showed up on this car wreck scene and had this samadhi awakening of the end of self in my physical body. I know and I understand this teaching of the Upanishads and Jesus firsthand. Experience, not belief. I don't believe the Upanishads. I don't believe the Gospel of Thomas. I don't think that it's true. This is the union of experience. This experience has levels and gradations. If you've experienced the divine presence as a radiance, you've touched the same thing. The I am who I am, the Christ who you are inside yourself. The teachings of Rumi, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Lao Tzu also emphasize this idea of the divine within. Rumi wrote, "The soul is the mirror of the divine, and you are the soul." Same light. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "The ultimate reality is within us, and we can access it through mindfulness and meditation." Lao Tzu wrote, "The Tao is within us, and we can access it through silence, through stillness, and contemplation." The Tao is within us, and we can access it through stillness and contemplation. These mystical geniuses wrote in language and culture of their time to say the same thing that Jesus was teaching. Knowing about the ultimate reality within can help us find the fortitude to grow in a centering practice, bringing peace and contentment to our lives, in the anxieties, in the turmoil, in the stresses, in the life-threatening things that happen to people. This cultivation of the feeling of the divine matters so much more than the knowledge of the divine with the head. The heart is where it's at. Learning helps us remember. Learning really does help us remember that we're connected to something greater than ourselves and are part of the large, unified whole. And so when we interact with people in our daily lives with kindness and compassion, we're still interacting with the other, with the one who is us in the guise of the other. We bring our thoughts into action. We bring our feeling into action. We bring this radiance into action in our daily lives through remembrance, yes, for sure, but through the active cultivation of the inner space of power and peace and contentment, of happiness. Happiness isn't out there somewhere to be grasped, it's in here to be lived, which brings the direct experience of this peace and contentment. The cultivation of this space is the thing itself. It's accessible to everyone and has always been. That's why it's in those writings of these diverse mystical geniuses from around the history of the world. We do this through our sacred hearts. Maybe you've seen the painting of Jesus holding the flaming heart in his hand. His chest ripped open, the heart's sitting there, and he's got a flaming chakra represented as a heart in his hand. His hand is participating in the holding of this fire, this heart of fire. The opening through which I re-entered my body was right here. My body was ripped open. I saw the spike go into, it was like a spike in an ice screw that screwed in, that ripped me open and tunneled me in. And when I was inside, this is the spot of my entry. This is the space of seeing the other as love itself. It is through the heart chakra. It is the love that is all things. This chakra opening, it opened, I could still see heaven as it closed itself on me when I was inside, trapped inside this form. I watched it close, and it took me years to understand that this is the location of my highest intelligence. The cultivation of my heart chakra is the balance between the north and the south poles of me. It's the connection that leads to the oneness that encases all of this. Inside here is the balance. I live with anxiety like you all do. I have stresses in my life. I get anxious about something. I bring myself back to the center point of my being, and I balance between these two worlds. I balance between the north and the south, the plus and the minus, the soul and the body. And I am connected in that place to this one shield. That's not a perfect metaphor, okay? Because it's so much bigger. It's more like I'm inside of the heliosphere. Is that the name of it? It's the radiance of the sun that extends beyond the edge of the galaxy, where the light ends, not the galaxy, our solar system, where the light of the sun and the radiance of the sun has like an end point. I'm inside of that thing, and so are you. This is so much bigger than just this shield around me. But the heart is this center point for me, this balance between this world and that world. And this world, it's real, okay? Look, there's crunchy things here. There's things solid things. But the ultimate reality is all that there actually is. The growth of the practice, the growth of the divine inside of you brings heaven into you. And not only brings heaven into you, it allows the space inside yourself for the radiance to grow in your living world in relationship. This is not just navel gazing. This is living in the world in the context of your life. And this is a dangerous world. Turkey, oh my God, Turkey. Prayers for Syria, prayers for Turkey, heartbroken. We've got wars and threats of wars again. And climate change. There's a lot that people are worried about. How do you balance, plus their own personal lives, plus your own personal life? How do you balance this? Where do you find this place to live between the poles so that you can sit inside the center of the divine itself, the center, the circle whose circumference is nowhere and whose center is everywhere? This spot inside yourself. Thich Nhat Hanh, Rumi, the Upanishads, Jesus. How many more? Many, many more. Lao Tzu. They all used different words to mean the same thing because this is all metaphor. We're back to metaphor again. This is why I began with metaphor 2 years ago, because it's the fundamental understanding of how the language of mysticism works. Different words, different context, same meaning. This same thing that they talk about, it happened to me. I didn't choose this thing that happened to me. It happened to me, and I'll tell you, I didn't want it to happen to me. I craved it with all of my being after I began my journey as a child, but I didn't want to give up myself. I've struggled with this my whole life. But even in the struggle, in the midst of the struggle of the end of self, that center point of balance has been I dance like an angel on the head of a pin, on the prick of a pin. That balance place is my sanctuary and my rescue and my fortitude and my love and my compassion. All of it is contained in this one balance place. And it grows with practice. This morning I was sitting on my zafu, my zubitan. I've got this, well, it's a sitting pillow with a sitting cushion like a futon. I'm sitting there and I'm just breathing. Hard breath in, hard breath out. And then I was like, relax. And I just was breath. And I was listening to my breath. And in the listening of my breath, I melt into this place of silence. Back to touch the place of samadhi, back to touch the place of union, back to touch your own mystical experience. It lives inside you. This same thing that happened to these writers happened to me. I didn't choose it. It was done to me. Maybe I made a deal. I did. Okay. I know I made a deal. I don't know the context of all of the deal. I know I made a deal before I was born, but as a Peter, I don't didn't really like until it was shown to me. I had no idea, and then I didn't like that it was disrupting me from the world. I have chosen, for good or for ill, to well, I found a treasure buried in a field, and I put it back on the ground and sold everything to acquire that one field. I found a pearl of great price, and I sold everything to acquire that one pearl. I not just real estate, not just money in the bank, self. You sell everything, and the everything you sell is the self, bit by bit, little by little, until the pearl that sits in the center of the heart becomes this balance point. And then live between the two worlds. The divine enters in and it radiates into the world through you. You are the vehicle of heaven. You are the channel of heaven here. That's why this Christ consciousness, this whole global awakening, this it's all about each individual in a collective, in this great worldwide web of light that's now on our planet through the web, but also through the radiance of those who are awakened and awakening, not just to the divine presence of the light, but the end of self that allows room for more of this to grow and live inside us. This happened to me. And I tell you that it is the only real there is. Your immortal soul is you. Why not invest in that? But like I've said, don't take my word for it. Take theirs, maybe. Thich Nhat Hanh, Lao Tzu, the Upanishads, Jesus. Take theirs. Now, I know what I am. I know the polarity of my north and south. I know my human and my soul. I've balanced through my heart in my yin and yang, inside the oneness with the oneness inside of me. I've squandered my life on this. I've squandered this life on this, but it feels like no squandering to me. This wisdom helps me find meaning and purpose in my life. It becomes the meaning and purpose of my life, not the things out here that are manifestations of the purpose of my life or the meaning of my life. The meaning is right here. And then as I act in the world, the purpose and the meaning of my life get lived through this inner thing that comes through, as it says in the Aramaic, inside and then out into the midst of. And then to live with more compassion. I am no perfect person. I think I scared people skiing yesterday again. Come blowing through too fast, even though I've slowed down. I know it wasn't slow enough for some of the people, but I had slowed down. Okay. I use that as an example to say, I am not a perfect person, but I try and strive with my brain to live with compassion and understanding for myself. I know what I'm like when I ski. And for others, I try to forgive others. And this balance point is what grows this inside of me. And it's done this for me. I learned something this past week. I've learned lots of things this past week, as I often do. You know, in Islam, where they bow down and put their heads to the mat, in that particular form, they raise their hearts above their heads. They raise their hearts above their heads. Turns out this is an ancient Christian practice. I say that because I'm not 100% sure, that I read about in this book on Aramaic Jesus. But the truth is, in that position, you raise your heart above your head. And this is the place of humility. The humility, but it's still your heart. Sure, you're humbling your head, but it's still your heart. It's your connection point to the divine. This is the place of divine intelligence, because divine intelligence is love. Don't take my word for it. Seek it for yourself and find the radiance, this feeling of the buzz in your fingertips, the radiance inside your hands, this feeling of the aura of yourself. I'm not here to be an evangelist, to convince anybody of anything. I'm here to tell you to try to find it on your own. Seek and ye shall find. Ultimately, the teachings of the mystics, of the mystical geniuses in history, whose books have been in print for thousands of years. Why have they been in print for thousands of years? Or hundreds of years in the case of Rumi? Why? Why do people keep reading them? Because the resonance of their own truth that came through these mystical people is found inside the words to teach our heads and to open our hearts, to tell us again and again to open our hearts, to raise our hearts above our heads. These teachings of the mystics remind us that we're all part of the divine with a capital D, and that we can access, you can access this divine power within yourself. I have found it inside myself. I know I had extra juice when I came back from my NDE, but I didn't really. The only difference is that it was open. The juice is the same. It's the openness that had changed for me. The supercharge inside myself. That same energy is inside of you. And with this divine power, you can empower yourself. What? To live a better life? To live your highest and best self? No. Not your highest and best false self. Not your highest and best own desires. Your highest and best true self. This radiance that you are, where you came from, where you're going. And yes, it bleeds into these other things. And you can still live your best self in the world. But it's centered here instead of here. When it's centered here, in this space, you find how much you're loved, and then are able to love others. And together then, we change society and families wherever we go. I had this little interaction the other day. I was just being myself. I went to go see the Asian stellar sea eagle, which is famous. It's right here. I missed it last year. It came to Boothbay Harbor, and I went 5 times. I never saw it. So a buddy of mine texted me, says, "You got to drop everything on Friday. This is where the bird's at." I went, and a town called Arousik. I went over to Arousik, which is another one of these fingers sticking out into the Gulf of Maine. I saw the bird, but as I was walking with this elderly woman on a path, we chatted and we watched. And at some point she said to me, "You're a very kind man." And I said, "This is the side effect of the divine presence. The living of kindness in the world, in common everyday experiences. It's how it's spread. Random acts of love and kindness." Remember that movement? A random act of kindness. It arises right here, in this spot here, this balance point between the north and the south poles of yourself, your soul and your human form. And we use this knowledge, this wisdom, to live more meaningful lives and find peace and contentment in the turmoil of our daily lives in the midst of this crazy world we're living in right now. And I know maybe it's always been crazy, but right now, wowzer. Does anxiety grip you? Does stress control you? Give yourself a daily break from yourself. Seek and find the cure for all that ails you. Maybe you've heard it said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. This is the cure-all. This oneness of being, this remembrance of your true self and its lived experience in the presence of the radiance itself is the cure. It doesn't fix everything in the world. I can't impose my will and fix a bone on when someone has a broken leg. Maybe it'd be great if I could do that, if I could bring physical healing into the world. It's not my thing, I guess. Would I like to be able to do that? Yes, I would. I'd love to be able to show this Jesus was walking around healing people, showing the radiance. Trouble was, everybody wanted a healing of the physical kind, which is fine, understandable, but missing the message of the eternal healing. It's right inside of you. It's right. You had it all along. Click your heels together, Dorothy. You had it all along. In the process, you'll learn to take a breath to pause before reacting in the world with anger. If you have an anger thing and you practice meditation, practice yoga, practice walking meditation, sitting meditation, nature meditation, whatever kind of meditation that you practice, music meditation, particularly silent meditation, training your mind, but all these other kinds too. Take a breath before the anger. If you get used to taking breaths with conscious awareness and putting yourself inside the breath and listening to the breath as you breathe it in, hear it with your ears, feel it with your body. Before reacting with anger. If anger catches you first, step back. Take a breath. It'll help you step back from the ruminations of anxiety. Is there enough money? How's my friend going to heal? What's going on in the world? Am I going to name your thing? I'm worried about speaking in front of people. Give yourself a step back from the ruminations of anxiety. This is a cure. Well, I don't know. It hasn't really cured me 100%. Okay, that's true. But it is a tool in my medicine cabinet. I take the daily dose of meditation because it teaches my mind to end my rumination, which propels my anxieties. You will train your brain and gain levels of self-control by eliminating attachment to the false self. This morning, as I sat on my Zubitan and Zafu, just listening to my breath, I bring myself into control. Not a hard control, a very soft control. The woo-wee, the not doing. I am not doing in this. I am simply breathing. The only happiness for me in the world is the oneness itself. I have fun for sure. I love having a good time. And I enjoy the company of my friends and my family. But once you see Paris, you can't keep him on the farm. Once the happiness was the world for me, the capital H and a capital W, when the happiness became the world for me and the oneness of being, that's the only place to seek it for me. My death is coming. Who knows when? Maybe I've got 20 years. Maybe I got 30. Maybe I got a day. I don't know. I know that when I died, not only could I not take the treasures of the world with me, I couldn't take myself with me. My karmic attachments. Turn to the oneness of being. Find illumination now. Ease my process across. This is my lifelong study. My NDE and Kriya-powered Samadhi and other mystical experiences all grow out of my centering practices. I want to share that energy with you so you can find it for yourselves. That's what this mysticism, not church, is for. That's what Mystic Tea Salon is for. At the top of the next hour, going to be a link below. That's what this is for, is to share this energy that we have, that mystics have been repressed and kept to ourselves. It comes with gifts. People always want to know about the gifts of NDE. The real gifts of my near-death experience. It's not this shifting in space and time. It's not seeing the future before it happens. It's not the divine. Well, it is kind of that. It is kind of the mystical experiences. That's true. Okay, the mystical experience is not the radial, the electrical thing that I've got trouble with electronics. It's not. Reading the energy of people or seeing auras or seeing the dead or any of these psychics phenomenon, those aren't the real treasures for me. Those are sort of like sideshows to me. Wonderful, yes, but the thing themselves, no. Compassion, kindness, humility in the world. The expression of this in the world matters more to me than those other gifts. But what matters more to me than those two, the expression of it or the gifts themselves, is the gift of the divine presence, the being in the being itself, to be in the balance point between soul and body and to live in this balance spot. Balance is a big part of my life. Physical balance. I've practiced, I stilt walk. I practice balance forms in yoga. I ski with balance, skate with balance, ride my bike with balance. I walk with balance. Balance is a huge part of my life, partly because of my physical being, my kinesthetic ability that I've worked on, but mostly because in the balance of myself, I find my way home. The interconnection point, the heart of the matter is the heart of my being, my heart chakra. Now, if our community, our little community, matters to you and my teaching inspires you, thank you for your support, and please show support through gifts at peterpanagore.love. It makes a huge difference. This is an independent ministry, and I really am out here trying to use all of the skills I've learned in a lifetime of communication, but mostly of the divine presence, to show you what you already are. I don't want to be your guru. I want to show you that the guru is inside of you. When you can see this, you can grow this. And the growing of it is the seeking of it, and the seeing it is the finding of it. You don't just seek and find. You find as you seek, step by step. And I can only do this with you the way that we're doing it right now. We do this together, though. I can't be here without you. So thank you, and I appreciate it. I keep accepting podcast invitations. I was up till, midnight last night. They had tech issues. We were supposed to start at 10, then 11. Then it was midnight, and it didn't happen. So this is going to come up, though. We're going to have it. We rescheduled it. But I keep accepting these podcast invitations. You make this possible. Hundreds of podcasts. I've been a guest on 100 of them, and it's not like, why? Why do I do this? Because I want to bring this energetic truth to the world as a messenger, as my job. The meaning I have in the world, the purpose of my world, I could say it's being a messenger, but really the purpose of my world is being in the being itself, and the expression of that is trying to convey it in my physical body in an energetic way, in an articulate, knowledge-based way, in order to convey the idea that you already have the truth inside you, which is what Jesus was teaching. Breathe with me just a moment, please. And I'll go to the chat. I'd love to hear how Freightless is doing this week. Had some trouble last week. Remember to join us for Mystic Tea Salon at the top of the hour, link below. It's a mystical conversation and community collective wisdom, humility, compassion, and kindness. I'm going to take a breath or two here. All right, my friends. Welcome, everybody. Had 80 people here this morning at a high point. I'm starting at the bottom of the... Got to change my arm for my mic so that I could see what's going on over here. Seeking truth outside yourself will not lead to peace, joy, happiness, as it all goes from within. Diane, it's totally true. It's not out there. It is in here. And it includes happiness too. I mean, I like you. I have toys. I'll get the latest and greatest, whatever. And even if it's a seat cushion, I'll get a seat cushion. But like, oh, I got a new seat cushion. I'm so happy. And then the next day I'm sitting on it, and then 3 days later, it's like, I don't even see it anymore. I mean, I feel it, but I don't actually have a new cushion. The one I'm sitting on is pretty old, but it's very comfortable. But anyway, Wendy, thank you. You are an inspired soul speaking divine, unspeakable. It's my honor and privilege to help by sending you monthly support through the mail. Thank you. Thank you very much. I know you do, and you have for decades, actually, for decades and decades. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I should be using my right hand over my heart over here. Robert, it's the love soup, and ask the right question, like praying for others needs to have the power of Father's love. We could talk about prayer. So this is another little subject. We only have a few minutes left. I began this practice of Tonglen a long time ago, this breathing in the suffering of the world or the pain of the world, and breathing out peace. I've been employing the same idea because somebody brought it up in Not Church or in Mystic Tea Salon. When we pray for other people, bring them into ourselves. So I've been practicing bringing people into myself and breathing out healing on them, breathing in their pain, their suffering, their wounds. Breathing out healing and peace toward them. Brother Ed, stillness and silence are the womb of God, gifts I've found in the deep and true meditation, not what I think, it's what the Spirit reveals. Know this: reading the Gospel of Thomas every Sabbath is both a type of meditation and a way to tune one's mind into the Holy Ghost. In the Catholic monastic tradition, that's called Lectio Divina. It has a long tradition of reading the spiritual texts and reflecting on them. Death is the ultimate healing. Yeah, Nancy, it is the ultimate healing. It's the ultimate healing. I mean, that's why that is, yeah. There's a million things I could say about that, but you summed it up exactly. Death is the ultimate healing. That's what I experienced for sure, for 1,000% sure. Peter, we bring a rarer form of healing. Thank you, Kristen. Diane had an STE, experiencing blissful love, heading to see the eagle this week in Georgetown. Yeah. There's a lot of people set up there with scopes. So if you don't have a scope, I don't have a scope, but with my binoculars, but there's a lot of scopes set up. I hope you see it. It was quite the sight to see. Its beak is like this cartoonishly huge, orange, beautiful, beautiful bird. We don't live by bread alone. Skimming, putting the heart chakra over the head. Yeah, Kristen. Room to grow. I'm just beginning to understand this. A few months ago, I heard Jesus say to me joyfully, make room, plenty of room, many rooms in the mansion of God. Make room inside yourself. Make room inside yourself. And the more room you make, I'm so glad you heard it from Jesus, because take his word for it. You didn't know what he meant. Now maybe you do. You make room for yourself inside of the divine by limiting the false self. It doesn't go away. It just, your perspective on it changes. A perspective. Let's see, Ronnie, please remember to hit the thumbs up button so others can easily manage to find this amazing message. Thank you very much, Ronnie, for saying so, and for Vineyard Worker for saying thumbs up. Andrew, hi. I am that thou art, and all this that, great to use as a type of mantra. I am that thou art, and all this is that. It's a summary of what we're saying from Hinduism. Thank you. Words to live by. Love this talk, Peter. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that, especially coming from you, brother. Let's see what else. I'm skimming back up. I'm going to take a little break here. I learned this interesting thing the other day about Aramaic is that there's no verb to be. That's an interesting thing. Zippity doo quirk. Thanks, Ronnie. Hey, Maggie. In Scotland, if as a species we do not accept the simple truth of this wisdom, we are condemned to perish as we fight over what divides rather than grows with what connects. And this is it. This is why it matters in the world. If as a species we do not accept the simple truth, capital S, capital T, of this wisdom, capital W, we are condemned to perish as we fight over what divides rather than grows and connects us. This is our chance. Humanity's chance in the midst of all of this turmoil. This is our chance. Hey, Jem. David, hey, Timothy, Mary, Kitya. I wonder how Freetness is doing this week. She's not here this week. I don't see her. Hey, Barbara, Janet, and PL. All right, back to the top I skimmed. All right, I'm going to take an 8-minute break here. I'll turn on the Zoom in a moment before I take a little break, and I'll see you at the top of the hour. Mystic Tea Salon, link below. Conversation, collective wisdom, humility, compassion, peace, and love, everybody. Thank you for spending time with me. It humbles me to be able to know that you'll be here every week. Thank you so much. And hello, everybody who's watching this on a recording. It makes no difference to the divine energy itself. All right. Oh, Freetness, you're here. Okay, excellent. I hope you're well and better this week. Been pulling you into my heart, Tonglen, and breathing out peace and healing. All right. I see y'all soon. Peace and love, everybody. Peace and love.